Спасибо большое, Прасковья. Okay, English. So, hi all. I think some of our colleagues are just tuning in coffee, but we have like very strict time deadline because we have a big session that is coming up after this event. So just to quickly, we are talking about one of the most exciting topics, especially for me. It's topics about blockchain, and it is growing, crazy fast. You've heard a lot of stories about cryptocurrencies. We have a lot of investments that is coming into decentralized world like Web3 from Andreessen Horowitz, and we are, looking at different types of development. But today we are concentrating on specific applications of the blockchain technology in government. And we have a fantastic panelist with me who has extensive experience in using blockchain in order to increase trust of citizens in government services. So let me start from Vasil. Vasil, introduce yourself and just tell us your story about using blockchain.
Yeah. Hello everyone. Really appreciate being here. Like since 2019, I've never been in my business trips and in conference, and it's really great to be here offline one more time. My name is Vasil Zadvorny, or simply you can call me Basil. I'm from Ukraine, and I'm representing Ukrainian public procurement system called Prozoro, which is basically referred to Ukrainian word transparent, Prozori. The idea of my speech today will not be focused on the blockchain technology specifically. I'm basically the technical guy, so I probably, like, my technical talking might be a bit boring for today, but about the idea that lies behind the blockchain and the idea about how the transparency might build the trust between the government and the citizens. So there are several major key points I'd like to highlight over here. First of all, we need to understand that the changes in the world are not only going in the technology sphere, but also in the way how we participate and how we understand the democracy and how the state should deal with the citizens. Like 40, 60 years ago, it was almost impossible to understand how the life was going within the top government representatives. But right now, almost each president has its Twitter account. He can speak with the citizens, and the level of transparency in our common life increasing dramatically within the last like 10 years. That in turn mean that the request for the transparency also rising dramatically within the citizens. And if like several years ago we might think about something which was closed on the government side as about the normal practice, right now everything which is closed will be suspicious for the citizens. So if government would not like to show something, then it probably something bad that government wouldn't like to show for us. On another hand, the trust to the government, and the trust is probably one of the key feature and major stuff that gathering the society together. And it's almost impossible to do something efficiently without the trust. Just think a bit about it. Just because of trust, we can do business. Just because of, well, I mean, we do have the low level, we do have the low level of trust in Ukraine, and that leads to high administrative burden in terms of legals, in terms of contracting, and in terms of all other stuff. The higher level of trust in the society is, the low level of administrative burden in doing business and in efficiency is. So, taking these two key points together leads us to the idea that building the trust with the transparency is probably one of the major stuff that government can do with implementing of information technology. And here probably where the example of Prozoro came and where the technologies like blockchain might be really impressive and useful. A public procurement was always seen in Ukraine as a synonym of corruption. And basically, while taking part in the conferences about the public procurement, I commonly heard two words about which are associated with the public procurement. It is a corruption in the post-USSR countries, and it is a bureaucracy in all other world. Public procurement is a huge area of Ukrainian budget. Almost 25 billion of United States dollars spent annually in the public procurement. And because of its absolutely closed to the society, it was seen as a dark hole of a corruption. Just imagine, before the 2014, you need to buy a paper newspaper in order to understand which tender was announced in Ukraine, who was selected as a winner, and so on and so forth. Sometimes specific guys, they just bought all the examples of the instances of the newspaper just to make everyone else don't know about the specific procurement. You cannot understand why you was disqualified from the procurement. You do not know how many suppliers deal with the government, how many money was paid to specific supplier, and so on and so forth. That's why just after the Revolution of Dignity, perhaps somewhere between like April and June of 2014, the group of volunteers came up with the idea to make the procurement in Ukraine as transparent as we can. And there where the idea of blockchaining and hashing of each previous blocks and providing the non-repudiation came up. Right now, Prozoro is a totally open public procurement system. Basically, it's also based on the open source as well, where you can see each step of each from 2 million procurement which are being conducted on an annual basis in Ukraine, and which are being conducted by like 40K public procurement entities. You can see the information from the very beginning. You can be sure that this information was not repudiated by anyone else, because again, each changes in the object is being hashed, and each next revision includes the hash of the previous revision. It was probably the one technical part of my today's presentation. And that basically leads to like a tremendous results. Prozoro used to save almost 5 billions. Within these 5 years, Prozoro was started at the beginning of 2016. So within these years, Prozoro helped to save almost 5 billion United States dollars to Ukrainian government. Just, well, I mean, you may ask me why, how the less money government would spend. So we spent like 5 billion United States dollars. Another achievement is just opening the market to the suppliers. So before the Prozoro, you need to do something special in order to get the contract with the government. I mean, you didn't know about any types of tenders. You need to find this information somewhere. You need to, I mean, print your documentation, stamp it, put it into the envelope, send it by the post. Then this envelope will be lost somewhere. And I mean, it was chaos. It was a mess. Right now, you just can send your proposal via an internet and be sure that it will be stored forever, and I mean, no one can just drop it, delete it from the system. Again, because of this technological background. That leads to the situation where we do have right now almost 3 times more suppliers who deal with the government rather than we had it before. So we increase the level of competitiveness and the level of business. And it was much more important for Ukraine in the COVID year, in the previous year, when the economic, I mean, goes down in all the countries. Public procurement used to work as a safe harbor. Almost 10,000 of new suppliers joined the public procurement within the 2020 year. It was like a 10-15% growth year to year within the 2020 year. Again, it was easy to do because we do have this system in place, and everything the suppliers should do is just to go and put it bid. And to end my presentation, I would like you to describe two bright examples of the suppliers, of how Prozoro impacts small and medium business. This spring, we conducted a small research within the supplier to understand the issues and problems and pros and cons of the Prozoro. And we found some small entrepreneur from Rivne region. It's one of the western region of Ukraine, and guys from the marketing department called him. And apparently appears that it was like a 25-year guys who heard about the Prozoro in university. Come on, they got the university courses about the public procurement. And then he decided, okay, let's try. I'll try to sell something to the government. He failed in first 2 or 3 procurements, but he got an experience. And now he is a vegetable supplier for some governmental entities. 25-year guys. That's the idea how Prozoro promotes small and medium enterprises in Ukrainian regions with no additional works that are being done right now. And the second example is about another small guy which I met by accident in some startup meeting in Kiev. He is a startupper. He develops interactive boards to the schools. So there's the device which can connect with the wall and notebook and help teacher to conduct more interactive classes. And these startuppers got his first customers not from B2C, not from his own selling, but from the government. So the government also provides the basis to the startups, to the developers. Basically, that's the effect of open data about the provided by the government, and from the trust that can build upon this open data. Definitely, we cannot say that Prozoro destroys all the corruption in Ukraine, but we're absolutely sure that the level of trust increased significantly, and we see the results in money, in suppliers, and probably will reach much more in future.
Thank you so much, Vasily. So, public procurement is one of the natural places where blockchain can be used to essentially promote transparency even more. But we have a wonderful story from Mariam, who used blockchain in land registry, right? Tell us more.
Hello, thanks for having me here, and thanks for being here because it's almost end of the day. Well, I do represent the government, but listening to you, I might go digital nomad because it really sounds fascinating what I've been hearing all day long. So, National Agency of Public Registry, the organization which I represent, is the legal entity of public law under the Ministry of Justice of Georgia. The one very important detail that 80% of us share here, even though we are from different countries, is that in Soviet Union we did not have private property. So what happened after Soviet Union is that we did not have any information who owned what and where was this property located at all. So in 2004, the NAPR was created, which was customer-oriented, secure, fast, and centralized, where we could keep the information together. NAPR started development in 4 major directions: institutional, administrative, legislative, and technological. And the biggest emphasis was put on technological development to make the registration process simpler and faster and secure for the citizens. That's how step by step we came to the blockchain. So what is blockchain? That's the question that I was asked 1,000 times, and I answer in different ways. So blockchain is the distributed ledger, the blockchain is the incorruptible database, it's the something that brings governments to the higher level of accountability and the new dimension of democracy, we can say, right? So we're in 4th industrial revolution. What does it mean? It means that the physical reality is merged with the cyber reality, and we get something in the middle of like physical and cyber lives. So in terms of decentralization, we can divide it into 4 different types, right? Decentralized communication, when we can text each other without government controlling us. Decentralized legislation, where the smart contracts are introduced, parties can draw up their own contracts, and we don't need any notaries or intermediaries or like third parties. Decentralized industries, we all observe the development of 3D printers that are very important in terms of housing, for example. Also the aging energy production, we know how the new technologies can help this problem. And lastly, the decentralized finances, which is corporate private money, which is very, very competitive with the systems controlled by the central banks. So when we're talking about blockchain, what are the adjectives that you remember regarding blockchain? Incorruptible, decentralized, trusted, secure. And who face the biggest problems in terms of security, in terms of corruption, in terms of transparency? Of course, government. Governments are the ones who control the distribution of the digital assets in general. Governments need the trust to be re-elected, simply, and governments are assumed to be like the ones who are fighting against corruption, right? And the biggest function of the agencies like us, the government, is to maintain the data regarding people, identity, property, and the businesses in the safe and protected environment, right? And we create our own database, our own infrastructure, which is of course expensive, and also it needs to be protected from the illegal access, also fraud, and it should reflect precise information about property, about identity, and about the businesses, because NAPR also registers businesses there in Georgia. So NAPR started this project in 2017 together with the Bitfury group, and it brought tremendous success. So we keep how we do it. First of all, it's very simple. We have the extract. This is the certificate of the ownership, and we issue this extract for each owner. For each extract, we generate the hash code, which is sent to the Bitcoin blockchain through Bitfury group, and this code is relevant only to this existing document. So this is the first time when national government said that I am achieving freedom through my limitation, right? I limit my control, I limit that I cannot illegally manipulate the data or do any kind of backdoor manipulations, and thus I'm achieving the freedom with this, so I can be trusted, and I'm on your side, on the citizen's side. Even though we really did not have any kind of backdoor manipulations in Georgia, you probably know that in terms of corruption perception index, we have really, really high rankings, like the lowest corruption in the region. And also with the World Bank doing business rankings, we have like first in terms of starting business, and fourth in terms of property registration. So it's like you were saying that it's not necessary to be a technical guy, right? I can afford, I'm a woman, so I can afford being sexist, right? I don't need to know how my car is operating in order to drive it, right? So the citizens they do not really need to know how those complex mathematical algorithms are calculated in order to trust the government that if I own this property, it means that I'm the owner and no one will be able to do anything with that. So we enhance the trust, and also accept this type of protection. Blockchain also protects us from the physical destruction, which is very important when you are Georgia. And do I still have time? Because I can really continue talking.
This is so cool, Maria. I think you
so
really...
the next step, what we're planning now, I will just add a small thing, is implementing the smart contracts to make it very easy, like how we order shoes on Amazon or food through Glovo. That's how you should be able to sell or buy the property with using your smartphone without the notaries or the wet stamps and the signatures and so on. So that's where we are going now.
Cool. You put it, in a very precise way of explaining how blockchain works and how it benefited in Georgia in particular. So we have one more speaker from Estonia, Silver Kalk, who is a business development manager at Guard Time. So Silver, can you hear us?
I can hear you very well.
Very good.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Very good. You can start.
Yes, hello. I'm calling you from Tallinn, Estonia. This is a place where car times and actually Estonian government's blockchain journey already started 15 years ago. So in blockchain terms, we are ancient. And back then, actually, our story started with, or from deep tech research, from university research. And back then, Estonian government were hit pretty hard by cyber attacks. And that was the moment when we realized as a country that we were already running a pretty digital government back then, but we hadn't safeguarded the data and the processes as much as the new world and the new attack vectors would require. And then the government turned to some scientists in Estonia, and upon that, our company was founded. So we invented actually our own blockchain technology 15 years ago. It happened even before Bitcoin and Satoshi Nakamoto's famous white paper. So we only later started calling our technology blockchain, but we have very many similarities nevertheless. So we have actually continued or carried on with this research ever since. Research in post-quantum cryptography, zero-knowledge technologies, blockchains, and so on. But we were so fortunate back then in 2007 that we got Estonian government as our key customer and development partner from day one. So everything that we have done and built, it's built with governments and for governments. And actually, thereby we have taken a little bit different route from the other blockchain technologies. We have focused on scale, we have focused on efficiency, and over the years it's been now validated in numerous applications in the public sector, also in the defense sector, and also with leading enterprise projects globally, that our blockchain technology and the solutions built upon it are scalable, and they provide real-world value. And this is what sometimes in the blockchain world and in those projects that they lack, the scalability aspect or the governance efficiency aspect. So our success is actually built upon the centralized aspect of KSI blockchain, our technology. And this is something that also differs from the other most well-known blockchain schemes or technologies. But we have actually learned over the course of the 15 years that in most public sector use cases, the decentralized consensus processes and decentralized governance processes, they're actually not required. What the government is looking for and what really matters is the immutability aspect of the blockchain. And we have built mostly upon this. So today we are providing solutions for cybersecurity, supply chain, healthcare, finance, and many other domains. And as the previous speakers have said, a common denominator in most of those use cases is still the trust. The integrity of processes and data that can be cryptographically validated. So Estonian government was fortunate, I think, to understand that 15 years ago, and by integrating this blockchain technology deeply into all our digital government processes and key registries, we have advanced pretty well, and we have provided that general trust in our systems ever since. And Cartam as a company was very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time and develop this technology with the governments. But I think, like this introduction to this session also said, is that blockchain has yet to deliver so much beyond those use cases in just in land registries or just in cybersecurity or data immutability. And we have been innovating, like I said, quite heavily, and our technology has progressed beyond the initial applications that we have done here in Estonia or in other governments in other countries. Today we are developing rather solutions that anchor some of the trust element in the blockchain, but can deliver so much more. For example, we are right now launching big projects in terms of cloud security, helping governments and other sensitive domains adopt more cloud, especially in the biggest smart city and e-government projects. We are working on healthcare data interoperability projects. We are doing post-quantum digital identity schemes. We are developing central bank digital currency technologies and many other solutions. Also, we have been active in terms of COVID-19 outbreak and the vaccines manufacturing and supply chain security. So I think the true value becomes when you start using the blockchain in those specific domain challenges, add much more value upon the blockchain layer, and the business models must also support adopting the blockchain. So I think in conclusion, we have been in the blockchain and government game for 15 years. It has been tough 15 years because we have not only sold our solution, but very often we have had to sell the problem as well before we can sell the solution. We have been educating the market about challenges that they didn't understand yet, but that were already looming in the horizon years ago. So it's easy to say that we were ahead of our time for the past 10 years, or that the blockchain technology has been ahead of its time for 10 years, or just been immature for the last 10 years. It would be convenient, but it's not actually true. I think the world just got up in the blockchain buzz, I think 5, 6, 7 years ago. There were some unrealistic expectations for blockchain and its value for the public sector. And sometimes also wrong tools were used in some specific projects. But today we are probably entering a new era, the era of tokenization of everything. And all valuable digital and physical assets will be turned into digital twins. Every process into smart contract. Monetary systems will be based on digital currencies, and so on and on. So blockchain will be the tool to deliver this. And blockchain has matured. Now we need next a blockchain technology that can actually handle the scale that the future world needs. And looking from Cartime's perspective, I think we are in a very good position to actually deliver upon this vision.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much, Silver. So Estonia started 15 years ago implementing blockchain technologies, especially in security. But the technology itself started in early 90s. And actually researchers were printing hashtags in New York Times newspaper just to make sure that they are not changing any, records in the ledger. So my question to Silver, just to elaborate more, how do you explain public the benefits of the blockchain, or that no one can, change the records that you have? How do you communicate to the public the benefits of the blockchain?
To be really honest, then we do not communicate the value of blockchain in Estonian registries directly to the public. There are, of course, some who take more interest in this technology. And like previous speaker said, you don't need to understand all the cryptography behind it. What we actually communicate is the transparency and trust of the governmental registries and the processes. We can mention that there's a blockchain technology behind it, or that everything can be mathematically proven, but I think the concept is still quite difficult to grasp for average citizens. And the same thing we see today with the next wave of the solutions that we provide. For example, in Europe, in Estonia as well, most of our everyday transactions are already digital. We use bank cards or money transfers. We rarely use paper cash money. But now to make it more understandable for the people why blockchain-based digital currencies would be the next step in the monetary systems, it's quite hard, because for them nothing much changes. It's more about the efficiency of the efficiency and the security of the public sector. So actually I would rather answer that we do not make big efforts to communicate the value of blockchain in Estonian registries to average Estonian citizens.
Okay, thank you so much, Silver. Mariam, so it is very difficult indeed to communicate public about how blockchain works, but do you have any internal procedures of how do you, ensure that everything is, in place, nothing is changed, and so on and so forth? Can you comment on that?
Before I answer your question, I just want to comment about what Silver was just talking about right now. So there is one difference between government and the private sector. So government cannot afford to start experiments, because we are spending citizens' money, and we cannot say that, okay, we tried, we failed, now we're going on. We move forward, we try something new. So we have our responsibility, and even in this project in 2017, without Bitfury Group, who actually financed all the project and is still paying for the transactions, we might have risked to try it, because what if it fails? Then it's people's taxes that are paid for education, for roads, for safety, and so on. You cannot really do those experiments when you're representing the government. And as for communication, I've had calls, like in our call center in the beginning when we started this project, people were calling and asking, like, why does government earn bitcoins with my property? And that's when we decided that we have to start explaining some things to these people. And of course we tried in every language possible, right? For the kids, for adults, for elderly, and so on. But what they needed to understand was that no one can illegally manipulate the data, and the property you own is yours and will be forever yours. The only thing what we needed from them to do is to store the PDFs. Then later, if something happens in the court, for example, you have to present the document and the hash, because we do not store the PDFs in a blockchain. You cannot simply, because you cannot upload that bigger data. We just store the hash codes, and as long as you cannot retranslate the hash code into the document, they needed to save that document to compare the hash codes which was stored in Bitcoin blockchain and what their document had. So that's what we tried to communicate through the front desk. And yes, we had several campaigns, the advertisements, and I've been in every TV show possible. And then also the foreign governments started trusting us. They were coming and asking questions. And in the Harvard Business School, they have the Georgia's use case in the syllabus. So people decided to trust us. That's what was the main idea, right? Of the project.
I think I've read one of those use cases. Vasil, Mariam is, saying that it's very difficult to experiment, with government systems. But as far as I know, your system is public-private project, right? And can you explain, how much you give, attention to innovation, how much you bring new technologies, and share us about the process that you go through.
Okay. It might be a long story. Please stop me if I'll go further. First of all, with regards to the experimentation, the idea of being responsible from the government side, where I totally agree with Mariam, is not about that the government could not implement something innovative, but it's more the idea that you should do your decision responsible, taking in account that you're definitely spending taxpayers' money. And I mean, you just cannot exclude some of your customer segment, because there's no customer segment when you're on the government side. There are citizens, and the whole citizens is your customer segment. Still, I'm pretty sure that the idea of gradual development and piloting, getting early feedbacks, and developing the system based on the customer feedback rather than just based on some civil servants that draw a roadmap behind the doors is a great possibility to develop. Again, Prozoro came up as an idea at the mid of 2014. And at the end of 2015, it was already in production, used by early adapters as a non-obligatory system. So it was put in a production for less than 1.5 years. And it cost zero money for the government, with the involvement of private sector partners. And that was possibly just because Prozoro does not go through whole, these comprehensive process with writing like this bunches of documents and drawing models, but rather goes with gradually piloting, implementing, getting the feedback from the customers, creating new features, correcting the wrongdoings, and so on and so forth. In Prozoro case, it's, I mean, the total different story. We definitely use not only the governmental side, but also the private side. Again, comparing Prozoro with, for example, what is being done in Georgia, still we do have this storage like the register on the governmental side. So the government stores the data. The governments can guarantee that this data cannot be changed. The government creates the rules, the business process, I don't know, the API models, how these data gonna be changed, within which time frames, and so on and so forth. But based on this data storage, based on this like reliable register, you can create a market of private providers which then can access to this data and build their services upon it. In Prozoro case, we just allow private companies to provide front-end services to the bidders and to the procuring entities. So we do have like 13 privately owned companies, and you can like announce the tender or place the bid through each of these companies. Moreover, you can use in one procurement different brokers. So the procurement might be announced through broker 1. The first bid will be placed through broker 2, the third bid will be placed through another broker, and so on and so forth, just because the data are being stored in the centers. And I mean, it looks like the banking system. So you do have the national bank, but this bank does not issue, does not give the credits to the citizens or takes the money for deposits. Yeah, he sets the rules. So the Prozoro works in the same way. We only store the data, but the idea is not just like build the same thing as the Prozoro based on each governmental service, but rather they have a service, a register, a data structure on the governmental side, a rules how this data can be changed and cannot be changed on the governmental side, and then provide then access to this API to the private sector so they can build their services upon it. Again, that increases the trust, and we again are going to talk about the trust and about the transparency of the data.
Okay, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time, but just to summarize, blockchain in government, just note if you agree, is all about trust. More or less?
Yeah, I would say the government and the citizens is about trust, and here is a place where the blockchain can impact a lot.
Okay. So we are not decentralizing, but we are providing immutable data to citizens so that they can check how the government is performing. Am I right, Silver? Just note. Great. And we are looking for smart contracts, maybe cryptocurrencies when we look future, maybe?
Cryptocurrencies, well, we are not related to cryptocurrencies no, we're not related to cryptocurrencies. But smart contracts, yes, we will be working about that. One more thing, what I wanted to say that, yes, we are expected to do a lot of things, but on the other hand, you should not create a problem in order to solve this problem using blockchain. If everything is okay, you don't have to use blockchain just because it's cool, right? So.
Marcel, do you want to add?
Yeah, so I mean, that's an important point about the cryptocurrency and the smart contracts. So, and really, it might be difficult in communication because historically, blockchain is associated with the bitcoins. And when you're talking about blockchain, everyone thought about the bitcoins, and the government would spend a lot of electricity in order to build these mining companies and mine bitcoins and so on and so forth. So I would say that taking in the focus that building trust is a key. I would say that the tokenization, smart contracting, using this hash calculation in order to provide reliable data is like the major, might be the major focus for e-governance project right now. As for but it does not imply, and it does not mean that you should do the cryptocurrency simultaneously. So it's like a separate processes, and the cryptocurrency should deal much more, as far as I understand, with the monetary policy and the national banks, rather than with the development of e-government.
Okay, thank you. Silver, 1 minute. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would add that public sector should be more brave. I understand the careful approach to experimental use cases with blockchain, and I totally agree that you shouldn't put blockchain where it shouldn't belong, like inventing the problems just to solve it with blockchain. But on the other hand, blockchain has matured. We're not talking about the blockchain era that once was defined by Bitcoin or even Ethereum. There are so many other possibilities that governments can today seize, and you don't need to go into production right away with them, but build sandboxes, let private sector to actually innovate upon this government as a platform. They build their technology, they implement it in your country, they sell it elsewhere, but there's so much to gain from blockchain. Basically every country today in the world, and probably Georgia as well, is exploring the CBDC space, the central bank digital currencies. It's blockchain. Every country is thinking about smart contracts. It's blockchain. So we have moved much beyond the use cases that we described today, and all the governments are actually experimenting with those technologies, not spending too much taxpayers' money, but rather putting the most capable companies in their own countries work on it. So I hope that in a few years' time we have so much new and much more valuable projects to discuss.
Thank you so much.
I'll text you after the conference and let's brainstorm, okay?
Okay, on that note, thank you so much, panelists. Let's applaud them. And thank you so much, participants, for your time. Thank you.